Okay, hi. So today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in March. So the first one is, we'll count it. It is The Curious Sofa by Edward Gorey. This is a classic, and as you can see by the front, it calls itself a pornographic work. It was written in 1961. I read it at a used bookstore, just standing there. I actually own another one of his books. They're like satirical, comedic type things, and it's just basically about a bunch of rich people who are like doing it all the time, and combining more and more rich people into it, and there's pictures that aren't actually that graphic, but maybe for 1961 they were graphic. But yeah, I read that, and I'm counting it because why not? And then I read 0 Days by Ruth Ware. I'm going to be honest. I started listening to this on a plane, and I definitely fell asleep for like some period of time in the first part of it, and then I listened to everything after. There was enough nods back to what transpired, like the big thing that transpired in the beginning, that I knew what happened, but I just want to be clear, I like mainly read this book. So it's about a woman who is a hacker. Her and her husband are like a hacker duo, but she does like physical hacking and he does like the online aspects of it, and they kind of work together, and they like get paid by people to like, this is like a real thing that happens where companies will pay people to attempt to hack in, and they find like the points in your system that are vulnerable, so that the company can fix those. And then her husband dies and she becomes the primary suspect, and then it's just kind of like following her as she's like on the run in London. In terms of Ruth Ware, yeah, she's not hit or miss for me, but they all kind of feel bland for the most part. I think my favorite that I've read of hers is The Turn of the Key. Although I've never read The Turn of the Screw, so I don't know how it nods to that book, or it does or doesn't. But yeah, you're just following this lady in a first-person narrative on the run, and like she does interact with other people, but she's like on the run, but she's also like trying to find out who her husband's actual killer is. And like, it's just like something bad happens and then she barely gets away, and then something bad happens and then she barely gets away. So it's kind of repetitive in those motions, and it's like her trying to get closer and closer to the events that actually occurred as she's trying to run away from the police. And one of the things I think makes this book kind of challenging is you have to like the protagonist or just not dislike her, because she is your only character. For all intents and purposes, you're just really following her and her relationship to the crime and to like everything that she's going through. And so you're very much in her head. You have a lot of internal monologue. You are just with this lady. So yeah, of all the Ruth Ware books, not my favorite, not my least favorite. I would really classify it though as a thriller instead of a mystery, because there is a mystery at the element at the core of it. There is a mystery going on of like who the murderer is, but the way it's told is very thrilling and like endorphin pumping, and she's always in this like huge state of anxiety, so it does make for a more thrilling read. But yeah, I just found it okay. Okay, and then I read The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin, which is the first book in the Dreamblood duology. This is my second series from N.K. Jemisin. I've read her Broken Earth trilogy. So N.K. Jemisin writes like sci fantasy kind of. This one is more on the fantasy side of things. And she writes a world that she just expects you to be able to dive into with her. She uses a lot of jargon. She really is like making up her own universe. And so I'm always kind of fumbling for like the first few chapters, getting my bearings. So I kind of find in that way that N.K. Jemisin is like hard to initially get into because you really have to immerse yourself in like the here and now and the what's happening. I generally listen to most of my fantasy on audio, but I cannot listen to N.K. Jemisin on audio. I have to physically read it. I'm usually going back to the notes at the end that kind of like she always has a glossary or something that explains who is who and what is going on. You're in a city, you're following two kind of different perspectives that you very quickly understand how they're going to merge. You're following this man who is a gatherer, and he gathers souls, which I think is called dream blood. There's 4 different types of dream substance that is a type of energy that you get from the human, from the body, from dreams and souls, and can be used or harnessed in some capacity to cure people of illnesses, to anything, to do other stuff with. And the society that you're in kind of centers around this. There is a prince of the society, but like this, the church of the Dream Blood Church, I'm saying the names wrong. The Dream Blood Church thing is kind of separate, but there's like the political intrigue where you're kind of questioning, is that really so? And when you live in this town or this place, you can be, I don't remember the word they use for it, but essentially cold for your dream blood and you die. And you're following someone who does that. They gather people. And if you come to this place as a tourist or something and you stay there, you could be cold. It's just like something that you have to deal with. So you follow someone who is not from there, and you follow this gatherer, and the gatherer is taking on a new apprentice. You see kind of their relationship blossom. You see this other woman who is an ambassador from another place. You kind of understand how people are all connected. You see the politics of the prince and like how the magic can be harnessed for good and evil. And you see the impacts and implications of using this magic. And you watch the fall of an individual kind of into insanity, and you slowly start to see the degradation of their mind through their own perspective and also through the perspectives of the people who are observing them. From my understanding, this is her least popular series, but I really enjoyed the first book, and I'm looking forward to jumping into the second one, which takes place like a decade later. So you kind of get like a resolution within this one, but you have seeds sown for new conflicts to arise, and specifically for like political machinations to change based on how the first book ends. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed it and am excited to get into the second book, which I have seen from reviews people tend to like more. So I also reread Royal Assassin and Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. These are the second and third book in the Farseer trilogy. I really enjoyed the experience. I had a feeling when reading the books the first time through, like the entire Realm of the Elderling, the 16 books, that there were so many things that I did not catch my first time reading them, and that it was really rich for a reread, and I can completely attest to that. This is the type of book this is the type of series where you can see that there were so many seeds planted. There are so many things that happen in the first time reading it that I didn't understand, with like the magic systems, with the politics of what was going on, that upon a reread just made so much more sense, and I was able to enjoy a lot more. I think that the pacing issues that people have a hard time with in the third book, knowing where the series goes, makes a reread of that a lot more immersive and interesting. And yeah, overall, I just cannot recommend The Realm of the Elderling enough for people who really love character-focused, relationship-focused books, even if you don't like fantasy. I don't think you have to. I think non-fantasy readers can enjoy these, and they can easily be a kind of gate for literary readers or classics readers. It feels like it has a lot of the same tones and as reading classics in some capacity. So I don't know. I really enjoy it. It makes me want to reread parts of the last book, Assassin's Fate, because there's a lot of nods back to Assassin's Quest and like just where the book ends, really like where the series ends really makes you consider where the Farseer trilogy ended. It gives you a different appreciation and different sentiments for what was occurring in this trilogy. So yeah, I loved that. We'll get into one that I have more negative thoughts on, and that's the last book, and that's The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. Now, Joe Abercrombie is like a very popular fantasy writer. He's known as like the grimdark king. People always bring his name up when you're talking about grimdark, and people love his books. The way that I remember people describing this book is that it is very slow and character focused, and I don't agree with that. I don't think it lacks plot, and I don't think it's slow. I think it's just quiet. You're following like maybe like 4 characters, but one of them doesn't get introduced until later, and they are from completely different walks of life or have had different experiences that have gotten them to where they are. And 2 of them are from I don't remember what they call themselves, the civilized place, whatever. And one of them is a northern man that they see as barbarians, and one of them is from the south. And I think, by the end of the book, you see the winding and the connections between those 4 characters. So in terms of that, it does take a long time to kind of situate how like these pieces are going to come together. But you're always learning and seeing new things. There's always something going on. It's just that, like, it's not as epic in proportion as a lot of books. It's not as epic as The Grace of Kings. It doesn't have, like, as huge of a cast as Mistborn. So I think that for people who are really plot-focused and love this huge, epic fantasy, that's not really what you're getting in this first book, at least. It's very quiet in nature in terms of that. I also think that on a positive, there's a lot of really good setup. There's political setup, there's the setup of like characters to grow and change and develop over time. You're not really following anyone likable. And there's a lot of like, there's a political setup and like political intrigue within the smaller universe you're in. There's a larger one that like a war is potentially coming, and then there's something even larger in scope than that. So that there's a lot of seeds being planted. So in that, I can understand why people really love his books and like think he is a good writer. I struggled with this book. I almost DNF'd it multiple times, and I don't see people say this, but I have to ask the question: what are we calling grimdark? Okay, because morally gray characters, yes, I can attest to them all being morally gray in some capacity. Unlikable too, not just morally gray, but people you don't really root for. Then you have the violent aspects of it, but like I don't really think violence is what constitutes grimdark, because like this series, Malice, The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, is not grimdark at all. It's like you follow very like Paladin-esque good characters and bad characters, but it is so fucking violent. It is such a violent book. So that's not what constitutes grimdark. But what I feel like people are calling grimdark is just the rampant ableism and fat phobia through this text. Like it's not just a matter of these characters being unlikable and having unlikable thought patterns, right? Like I even don't really enjoy that much if it's too heavy-handed. Like if a book, like a good example is Ghost written by David Mitchell. I DNF'd that because it was just unlikable character after unlikable character who would just had a really shitty attitude, and like the shittiness was all centered around the distaste for other people in terms of racism, fat phobia, like sexism, misogyny, all of that, homophobia. And it's just like, how many characters are you going to read like that until you start questioning if it's an authorial voice? And that is one of the problems that I had with this. Like you have a character who is disabled. One of your protagonists is disabled, and he cannot walk well. He cannot eat well. Like he had physical trauma occur to him to make him this way, and there's tons of internalized ableism, but then how the other characters describe him, it's just very cruel and grotesque. Like characters that have no real true voice on the page. Like they have to mention that they're overweight, but they can't just say they're fat. It has to be like grotesquely fat. And I'm like, bro, we wrote this in 2006. Like, what are we doing right now? So I can say the writing is good. I can say that I did get through the text. I think that there's really great setup to what is to come. But like truly, I cannot get over the ableism and the fat phobia that is so rampant through this text. And I wish more people talked about it, especially when recommending it, because I think that you have to recommend like the good and the bad. But anyway, that is all I have for this video. Those are all the books that I read in March. Hopefully I'll be uploading at a more regular cadence because I didn't upload anything last month. So anyway, that is all I got for this video. So until next time, happy reading.